Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough to Best Self with Holly and Lauren-Aaliyah. And oh my goodness, we love being here with you. Today we have a very interesting topic. We are talking about something you may or may not have considered in your walk. And when I say your walk, maybe you struggle with getting cravings under control. I don't know. I have in the past. So one of the ways, yep, there's Lauren over there saying, me too, me too.
hmm
And you know what? That's helpful. Let's start out with that. Before I say what the topic is, you know how helpful it is to talk to someone who understands the struggle of food and cravings? It's a game changer for me. Anywho, what we're talking about today is called pattern disruption. And there may be patterns that show up in your life that aren't serving you. Even more so could be causing cravings. And so today we're going to talk about what does that mean? What do you mean by pattern disruption? Lauren, what do we mean by pattern disruption? And good morning, good afternoon, my friend.
Hey there. Hey, hi everyone from Durban, South Africa. I'm back home in my environment on this episode. Last week I was in Johannesburg, so it's good to be back home. Yeah, pattern disruption. So, Holly, I did not know that I had patterns at all. That I just knew, I think sometimes just call them, here's a habit. I do this thing all the time. In patterns, we're talking about a sequence of events that leads to a particular behavior. And so in pattern disruption, we're talking about how do we interrupt the sequence of things? How do we stop doing the things the way we've always done them with the same result? So when I think about, pattern disruption, I think the oft repeated definition of insanity. I don't know that it's a textbook definition, and no disrespect to anybody with mental illness. But the perspective that if we keep doing what we've always done, we get the same result. And so,
Absolutely.
as people who have a history of uncontrolled cravings and are, in a cravings control recovery program, as you and I both have been for some years, we've probably had that experience where no matter how much we try, how many diets we followed, how many intentions we set, how many New Year's resolutions, how many Mondays we start, we kind of end up at the same place. And whether it's at by the end of day one or on day three or month three, it's like, oh my gosh, here I am again with these, patterns. So there's this long-term pattern, which is an experience that ends in the same place. But every day we have these
Yes.
short-term patterns that are contributing to that long-term outcome. And so in the world of sort of craving control management, of which, Holly and I are both trained, pattern disruption simply means how do we identify the behaviors or thought patterns or emotional patterns that take us down and become triggers of food cravings.
Right.
And can we get those patterns disrupted, intercepted, changed so that we don't have the cravings? So
Yeah.
that's, probably in a nutshell, pattern disruption within that context of craving control. That's what we're talking about. So maybe let's talk a little bit about maybe just different types of patterns and therefore different types of pattern disruptions, like what categories of patterns before we get into specifics. And we're definitely going to share some examples of our own patterns. And, we'd love for you to comment on this topic if you have some patterns of your own that you're
Yes,
noticing,
please.
comment on this in this video. Holly, categories of patterns and pattern disruption are, some broad categories that we've come across. Let's share some of those.
Well, we have the physical. We have a physical, and physical would be, I am physically doing this pattern. This is happening. I'm doing this. And then you have the emotional patterns, where, we can get into the sort of examples, but something emotional that happens on a regular basis that triggers you into cravings.
You
Um,
continually feel a certain way. You have the same emotional response in a certain setting.
right.
Some people have an emotional response to the weather. Oh, it's a cold day. I feel kind of sad. It's a pattern of an emotional pattern that's associated with something, right? Okay. What
Absolutely.
else have we got? What's another category?
Cognitive. So we have
Cognitive.
cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there are, what would that be, Lauren? What would the
Thought
cognitive patterns look like?
thought patterns. So in
Mhm.
cognitive, we're talking about our thinking. I think this way about, it could be a limiting belief, it could be a negative thought pattern. It's being stuck in a pattern of thinking. So when we talk about cognitive, we're really talking about the mind, um, both conscious and unconscious. But we won't,
Right.
get into too much of the unconscious work on which Holly and I again are both expertly trained. But just on a sort of basic level, it's what am I thinking that is leading me down to cravings. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some examples that have either
Mm,
shown up for us personally or for some of the people that we may have worked with in the past.
right on.
When we talk about physical, let's start with that
Mm-hmm.
one. Physical, can you give us an example of what that might look like?
Okay, so I physically walk in from work
Hmm.
through the door. I kick off my shoes. I go to the fridge. I grab some processed food out of the fridge because I'm home and I'm going to relax. And I go and plonk myself in the chair. And that's a physical behavior that I'm undertaking. I'm physically involved in it. It's a physical pattern. That's what I do. Another one is I watch a movie. I physically need to eat a certain processed food while I'm watching a movie, whether it's at home or whether I'm going to the movies. If I'm going to the movies, um, physically being challenged in the space, because
Okay.
in this space, this is what happens at the movies. When you're at the movies, this is what you eat. I mean, if you don't eat
Absolutely.
it, are you even at the movies? So these are all examples of physical patterns that happen in the same way. There are probably thousands of physical patterns that we can think about. And so they would require a physical disruption to the pattern. So let's talk about those examples and we'll talk about what you could physically do to disrupt that pattern. So the example of I walk in the door, I kick off my shoes, I go to the refrigerator, I sit down and I eat processed food could be I walk in the door, I go to the bedroom, I kick off my shoes, I wash my face, or I have a shower, or I lay down in the bed for 5 minutes and do some breath work. So a simple change in the pattern, you would be surprised how that can change what you do next. Because if you are actively working on improving your diet and actively working on eating clean, then it's the simple movement, physical movement from your front door to your bedroom gives you a moment to decide when I go to the refrigerator, what am I going to eat if I need to eat at all,
Correct.
right?
Exactly.
The other example of the movies at home, maybe I don't sit in that physical space that triggers me to eat. Maybe I sit in a different chair. It
Done that so
sounds
many times.
really simple, right? How many
Yep.
times has a place, like just a chair, been a trigger for you? Like, okay, I won't sit in that chair, I'll sit in the other chair. And when I'm in that
Absolutely.
chair, it's easier for me to drink a glass of water.
It's the weirdest thing. I never
It's this
thought that that would, but it does. It
It
really
does.
does.
Just physically changing your space could
Yes.
do it. Of course, going out to the movies takes a lot more planning and preparation in terms of the physical space. Physical space is where we're being challenged. And I think one of the other categories was social, like social triggers and social pattern disruption. And movies may
Yes.
fall into that category as well, where you may need to take in a clean snack with you. You just may
You
need
may
to
need
have
to
it
walk past that
fast.
poison stand and with blinders
Look at
on.
it. The challenge, though, is the smell in the movies becomes the
Oh
big
yeah.
challenge. So that we're talking about a totally different set of triggers, and we'll do trigger management in a different video. But as far as the pattern goes, there may be something in your pattern that says, I get to the movies, I buy the ticket, I go to the kiosk and buy the thing. Well, the pattern is, I go to the movies, I buy the ticket, I first go to the bathroom, I look at myself in the mirror, I repeat a few affirmations about how awesome I am, how wonderful it is to be here, how I'm going to enjoy the movie. I take a few deep breaths, I walk past the kiosk, and I go straight into the movies. That's a
Yep.
different pattern, right?
Yep.
So it could be something as elaborate as that, or as simple as I buy the ticket, I take a few breaths, I walk inside.
I
I
want to
don't
add
go to the
a
kiosk.
piece to that social because
Tell
I
me.
feel like our audience probably runs into this a lot, you know? I thought that if I wanted to recover from cravings and overeating, that I would never be able to go out and hang out with my friends again. I could never go to a restaurant again, right? And yet, want to stop living, okay? But I do want to stop craving and overeating. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the pattern for me would be we're going out to eat with friends. Let's go to the restaurant or look at the menu and order whatever with no thought as to what I was going to do. I'll order when I get there. Now the pattern is when I agree to going out, I find out where the restaurant is going to be. I look that menu up. I make sure that there's something that I can eat on it. I
Yeah.
have that plan. And when I show up at the restaurant, I don't look at the menu. I order what the plan is. And one other thing, I face, I try to face a different angle so that I'm not facing like sometimes people they have this whole dessert bar or something on
Right.
the edge or something that's going to
Mhm.
really trigger me, put my back to it. And I make it
Yeah.
about the connection in the at the restaurant. And that has
Yeah.
broken that pattern. Overeating at restaurants has been a pattern for me for decades. I have been able to break that
Yeah.
pattern. I never thought I could break that pattern. So
And that's
we
a
can do
fantastic
this.
example. Yeah. Good example of both physical pattern disruption because your behavior and your choices changed, but also social pattern disruption. The way you socialize, the way you go to a restaurant, the way you eat out, you've changed the pattern. So let's talk a bit about emotional patterns and emotional pattern disruption. Got it? You
Sure.
got some examples of how you've experienced that or how you see it coming up in some of your clients?
Yes. So I will start with myself in that when I experienced an emotion, let's say an intense emotion, I never had a way prior to getting into the FARA training and recovery myself, to process that emotion. So that emotion would show up, and then I felt like that was where I needed to stay in that negative emotion, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the cravings would come. I need to shut this down. Let me eat something that will numb me out, which never helped with the emotion because guess what? When that numbing went away, there it was again. There it was. So what can I do? I can be aware of what my emotions are. I can process our emotions. And Lauren, you and I do a lot of work, both two-on-one and one-on-one with clients on processing emotions because
Yeah.
we're not really taught how to process our emotions, as we're raised. We're taught how to do math, we're taught how to do English, science, history. We're not taught how to process our emotions. So that is something that I find is a pattern disruptor because the pattern was just fall into an emotion, feeling like I have no control over it, and then just live in there. Could be days, weeks, months, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
So that's a
So that
disruptor.
absolutely emotional processing as a pattern disruptor for emotional patterns. And I know exactly what you mean of, getting into a rut on a certain emotion and thinking we need to stay there. This is just how I feel about, pick a subject. This is how I feel. I feel the way I feel, and it's just really sad, and I'm going to eat over it. And then we
Yep.
start labeling ourselves emotional eaters, and we start saying
Right.
that, the emotions cause me to have cravings. It's the lack of emotional processing and the pattern of, I suppose, emotional, sort of accepting this emotional quagmire that we get stuck in. That's what causes the cravings. So the interruption of that pattern is to, you mentioned, first being aware. This is how I
Right.
feel. Acknowledging how we feel, naming the emotion,
Yes.
actually holding space for ourselves, acknowledging it, and being quite intentional that I'm not going to suppress this emotion,
Thank
because
you.
suppressing emotion is a pattern that we can have that very quickly leads to triggering the craving part of the brain, because that
I'm gonna raise my
emotional.
hand on that one, Lauren, because that you're describing me right there.
So many of us, right? So many of us. And like you said, Holly, it's only from a lack of skills, from not knowing how to process emotions.
Right.
So when we have uncomfortable, big emotions, sadness, anger, fear, frustration, resentment, these are big emotions that are really painful. And if you don't know how to process them, your survival instinct says, I got to escape.
I
And
agree.
so yeah,
I
and so
gotta,
this triggers the
yeah,
addiction part of the brain, or the craving part of the brain for somebody that may not identify as a food addict, but certainly understands rampant cravings and compulsive eating as a response to big emotions. And so processing those emotions is a pattern disruptor. You'd go, oh gosh, I feel really angry right now. Hmm, what's causing the anger? What do I do about the anger? Can I make space for this anger? Where does it come from? How do I move through it? Is there a decision I need to make? Is there a boundary I need to set? Is there a conversation I need to have? Or is there nothing I can do about it? So I just need to take care of myself today and just breathe and soothe myself and do a calming activity. And
yes,
sometimes the pattern is about taking stuff out, and sometimes the pattern is about putting stuff in. So you could
exactly.
bring in a physical pattern disruptor, like, I'm just going to go off and take a nap because I'm so angry.
Yeah,
Or I'm going to go and talk to a friend. And hopefully it's a friend that quells your anger and doesn't add to riling you up more. So select carefully who you talk to about big
this
emotions,
is
because some
true.
people just go, yes, you're absolutely right. You should be mad as hell. And it doesn't help to talk to people that make you more angry. But somebody that's going to hold space for you, allow you to feel your anger, but allow you to move through it. So these are the pattern disruptions, that we can use to process, emotional patterns, right? So we've
Right.
spoken a little bit about emotional patterns, disruptors. Let's talk a little bit about the cognitive one. So we said cognitive patterns are thought patterns. So give
And
me an
you're,
example of a
well, I
thought
was gonna
pattern.
say your emotional, the way you were describing the emotional, one thing that I heard you say that led to me to the cognitive was, what's underneath this? What's underneath this? What's the
What's
thought
underneath the anger?
process?
What are you thinking under the anger? Yep. What's
Yeah.
causing the anger? What?
So what is it? Could it be a limiting
Yeah.
belief? Could it be a belief that
Mhm.
was implanted in you or me years ago when we were kids? And it really wasn't even our belief. It was somebody else's made a statement, and then we took it on as our truth, and we've lived in that for years.
Yeah.
I know one of mine, Lauren, was I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy of this. I wasn't good enough. And that's changed. And the
Yeah.
cravings die down. And we come back to why are we talking about this? We're talking about cravings. The cravings died down when I realized that the belief I had wasn't true and wasn't mine. What about
Right.
you, Lauren?
So you got to shift that thought pattern, and that's a great example, of how there's a big emotion, but under that big emotion
Yeah.
is a thought pattern. We sometimes talk about the stories we're telling ourselves. So you mentioned beliefs. Sometimes it's a value. Sometimes it's
Mm,
deeper than a belief. It's a whole value. It's values that have been instilled in you. And the values lead to a belief. I'll give you an example in relationships where I have a pattern of every time somebody does this, I feel offended. I feel that way because they really shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. They shouldn't say that. They should be doing this. They should be doing that. How do I know that? Because I believe it. And why do I believe it? Because it's a value. That's just the way husbands behave. This is how partners should behave, right? So
right.
this is what you should do. And when we get stuck in those beliefs and values that cause big emotions, that's a cognitive pattern
Yes.
leading to an emotional pattern leading
Right.
to cravings, right? So we get to the root of it. And of course, we do certainly, that's exactly what we look at in, you do it with hypnotherapy, Holly, I do it with NLP, neuro
Yes.
linguistic programming, where we look at what is the thought pattern, what is the belief that's ultimately driving these cravings. So cognitive pattern disruption is about reframing or reprogramming thinking.
Yeah.
I think this, I feel this way, and then that's what I do. Or I change what I think, I change what I feel, and my behavior changes. And one of those outcomes is that we can use cognitive pattern disruption to stop cravings literally in their tracks. There's some practices, Holly, and we talk about this in a 4-week course that Holly and I do to get cravings and overeating under control. We certainly talk about pattern disruption in a lot more detail. But one of the things we do on the course is calming activities.
Yes.
And calming activities is a wonderful tool that you can kind of just insert into these patterns, right? So
Absolutely.
give us an example, Holly, of something that you can physically do, but it has an emotional effect and it gives you time to make a cognitive change. And in the process of doing that, you calm and stop the cravings. So, give us an example of a
Yeah.
calming activity that you can physically do on just about any pattern that shows up for you.
Okay. So yeah, I do a combination of I love to get my sound instruments out when I'm feeling very triggered. It could be physical. It usually is a combination of physical, emotional, and cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
I will pull out those bowls. I will play them. I will breathe deeply. Now, you may not have bowls in your house, okay? You may not, which is really cool if, Anywho, but you can go online and you can pull videos and listen to calming sounds. Maybe you like to meditate. I love to meditate. So I love to go and take just, it could even be 5 minutes to sit and just let my mind sort of empty out for a little while. Um, Spiritually, I can also get in touch with what I refer to as source and just feeling connected. And also, you, my friend, and you guys out there in the audience, I love to connect with people. And that is very calming for me. When I come in and I talk to you or I talk to some of our support group people, that is extremely calming for me to just let it out, breathe, and move on with my day.
Yeah.
All of those are calming activities for me.
Yeah.
Lauren, can you give some examples of what you partake?
So breath work is one that I use a lot because it's something where you don't have to pack any instruments or go with any
Right?
equipment or pay fees or visit any group. You've always got your breath with you. As long as you're alive, you've got breath. So breath work is a wonderful calming pattern disruptor. So once you've identified your patterns, as you watch this video and you think about some of the patterns of like, oh, I do this, I do this, I do this, and then I eat, or I need to eat, I notice that I need to eat. Figure out where in those activities, in that sequence of behaviors, you can slot in 5 minutes of breathing, 2 minutes of breathing. You will be blown away at how just taking a pause to breathe. We do a very quick, simple box breathing technique where you breathing in for 4 to 6 to 8. If you can hold it that long, 4 to 6 to 8 seconds, you're holding your breath for the same amount of time. You're exhaling for that amount of time and you're holding. And I'm drawing a box because it kind of gives you something to focus your attention on while you're breathing as you are visualizing a box. And just a few cycles, like
Yeah.
5, 6 cycles of breath, and you activate that parasympathetic nervous system, you slow your heart rate down, you lower cortisol levels, and suddenly you're just in a calmer space to do something different other than eat over it. And that's a way to stop cravings by interrupting with breath work. The other thing that particularly cognitive patterns, when my wheels are spinning on what I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking this thing and thinking it, and it could be things that are making me angry, sad, frustrated, resentful, whatever the emotion is, it's rooted in thinking and overthinking
Yes.
and not being able to stop the thinking. Of course, breath work, like I mentioned, helps to sort of slow that process down, but also gratitude. So gratitude is a
Oh,
practice that I have. It's my superpower. If I can insert gratitude, like just shove it into the wheel, it stops it from spinning, right? And just
yeah.
taking a moment in that situation. And if you can find something you're grateful for that is associated or kind of relevant to what you're thinking about. So I'm thinking about my finances at the end of the month. I'm worried about it. And now I'm going to eat over that because I'm so worried. Can you get grateful about something about your finances in this moment? Sure, there's worry about the end of the month. Absolutely. Is there financial gratitude you can find right now? So for me, the gratitude being relevant to what the cognitive pattern is
That's a great
helps
point.
as a pattern
Yep.
disruptor of like, okay, I'm fine. And again, it's about calming down the pattern that's leading to that. So breath work, gratitude, affirmations. I mean, there's really great
Always.
research around affirmations. Again, awesome for cognitive patterns, that particularly those related to uh, self-limiting beliefs. Anytime you can find an affirmation that reframes that self-limiting belief, and do that in a way that just gets, well, I'm not going to feel so bad about myself that I'm going to eat over it, or that nobody wants me here, I don't belong here, everybody's looking at me, people are treating me badly, so I'm just going to sit in the corner and eat all the food at the buffet table. But if the affirmations were that I add value and I light up every room and I attract great company and I have intelligent conversations and I connect easily with people and I am enough and I'm probably not going to sit at a buffet table all night,
Right.
right? So that's a simple way that I interrupt an old pattern of feeling really insecure and feeling really bad about myself. Affirmations can break through that. Holly, we could go on for
Yes,
much
we
longer,
could.
but I'm going to stop. I think this was a wonderful example of how patterns in the first place lead to cravings, and then how pattern disruption is such an awesome, not just tool, but I guess set of tools. It's a toolkit for
Yes.
stopping cravings in the attracts. Where can people who are watching this video learn more about this content that we're talking about? Let's talk a little bit about what we have coming up in November. November,
Yeah.
9th of
So,
November.
Lauren and I are excited because in November of 2024, I don't know when you're watching this video, but November of
Uh-huh,
2024,
uh-huh.
um, coming up soon, We are going to relaunch our course, Get Cravings and Overeating Under Control. And that is, it is an amazing 4-week live course. So we've got the content. The content is yours forever. If you end up signing up for the course, it's yours forever. But then you get to hang out with Lauren and I. We're going to go over the material for 4 weeks, live session every Saturday. If you're Eastern United States, it's 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays in November. This is going to be our year anniversary of us having launched that course. And it's
That's right.
exciting. We've gone through many cycles and many people have received quite the benefit, quite the reprieve, I guess you would say, from cravings and overeating. Us
Hmm.
two being the first on our course, before the course happened, but that's how we created the course because of the experience that we both have had in recovering from the
That's right.
cravings and the overeating. So that's coming up in the comments. Look in the comments below from this video, and there's going to be a link. You can click on the link and it'll take you to the Get Cravings page. You can read more about it and register for the live class if you'd like. We'd love, love, love to see you there.
Yeah.
Lauren, is there anything else you want to
Even
throw
if
out
you,
there?
yeah, if you're watching this video later than November 2024, click on the link anyway, because we keep updating when we have the live sessions. There is a self-guided version of the course available when Holly and I are not running it live. But there is definitely something to be said about those 4 live weeks that we do on Zoom. So you can join from anywhere in the world. We cover pattern disruption in a lot more detail. We also cover triggers and cues and calming activities in a lot more detail. So all aspects of what drives cravings and what it takes to put them uh,
Yeah.
to rest finally, right? End the food obsession and the weight obsession, which is just driven by cravings. So this has been an
Mhm.
awesome conversation once again. If you like the content that Holly and I shared in this video, please do check out other videos on our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're aware when Holly and I upload a new video. We would love to have you along with us in the next video as well. We'll see you there, guys.
See you there, friends. Thanks for watching.
Bye.